Spencer. I'm down here at ArtGeo at Busselton at my exhibition, A Transient Landscape, Wild Weeds and Earth Stories. I'm down here at Busselton with this exhibition because that's where the exhibition actually started when I was travelling through the Ludlow tulip forest, which is located between Bunbury and Busselton. I noticed the arum lilies and the bridal creeper in that forest. It was such a beautiful forest, but my attention became focused on these weeds because of their beauty as well. And I wanted to make work about that. It became such a thing for me that I ended up making 15 pieces of this work to show what's happening down here and to bring it to people's attention. So this weed I'm standing next to is a bridal creeper, and it's my interpretation of these weeds. They actually completely engulf the floor of the forest and climb up over everything. They completely cover the floor so that the natural species can't come through. And I wanted this installation, when I brought all these weeds together, to become that threatening and enlarged and all-encompassing installation to give you that feeling of a forest, but a forest of weeds, because it's the problem out there. So this gives you the idea of what the bridal creeper does to plants. I've made this out of wire. It's actually finger knitted out of 0.7mm wire, and I wanted it to convey that this is such a wiry menace. It's very hard to get rid of. They use a number of different ways to get rid of it, but it's very, very hard. A lot of conservation groups working on these problems. They use a lot of chemical to try and get rid of it. You can't just dig it out. It keeps regrowing. It's very, very, very hardy. These plants were brought here initially as garden plants. We love them. They're beautiful. This one, called Bridal Creeper, was brought here, I think, in the 1870s for bridal bouquets and our garden plants. It's beautiful. And I wanted to convey that beauty, but also the threatening thing that it has in the forest. These plants are my Mutated Watsonia plants. These ones grow on the sides of the road verges in places down here in Borenup Forest and lots of places down here. And they completely cover the ground too, as they get up to 2 metres high, these ones. So the beauty in these plants is not only the tuberous flowers, but underneath the ground there's this corm, which is why it keeps multiplying. It's so incredibly hard to get rid of. And it's absolutely beautiful, the way the structure of the outside sheath of the corm is just beautiful. So trying to convey both the beauty and the sinister nature of all these plants has been the challenge for me as an artist.
Well, when I was here that day, you were testing with the lights.
Yeah. To try to make the shadows so they weren't overpowering the work, because it actually is quite gentle work, but when you put the shadows in, sometimes the shadows become stronger than the work, like they're a lot darker, so it engulfs the work, which in another installation could be what you want.
Yeah.
But
when we change the lights, everything can look so different.
It does, doesn't it?
Because of the shadows.
Yeah. Well, it gives that mysteriousness of the forest. Yeah. So this piece is called Arum Attack, and it was the first piece in the installation. I did this 15 years ago when I was travelling down to Margaret River. I was studying, and this, as I learnt about the arum lilies in the forest, this became the work that I did from that. And it's made of wire, so it's flexible. It's made of a Viking net, and I wanted to convey the wiry, strong, and something sinister sinister sort of feel of the arum lilies in the forest, because they're taking over. They're a Western Australian declared weed and shouldn't be in our forests down here, especially a World Heritage Forest. There's only tall trees left in the world. So this piece is working on looking at what happens underneath the ground. I wanted to lift the plant above the ground and show that, you know, the interlinked network under the ground is what smothers everything else out, and you know, each plant's linked up to another, and off it goes. And also, again, the size, to try and make it feel threatening in its environment, make it taller than life size, so that we're dwarfed by this problem, which we are. We haven't managed to contain it. This is the beautiful part about this plant. Its velvety texture of the flower, the beautiful creamy whiteness and the dark green. It's just such an attractive plant, which was why it was brought here. It's beautiful. And now it lives here very comfortably in our forest and right down through the southwest. It's a nationally declared, actually no, this one is only a Western Australian declared weed. The Bridal Creeper is nationally declared, so they're big problems all over Australia, these weeds. So when you come into the gallery at ArtGeo, you'll be greeted by the Earth Stories part of the exhibition. This part of the exhibition is very close to my heart. I grew up on a farm, and right adjacent to the house, just outside the house yard fence, was the farm junk heap, which wasn't the rubbish dump. It was actually where all the old farm machinery that was no longer used was put. So it was lined up there, and many harvesters, horse-drawn equipment, the old stoves from the house, the tank full of rivets, header separators, all sorts of implements and pieces, you know, that Pop and my Uncle Cyril used in the farm. And my dad raids this tip for his inventions. He's an inventor of lots of farm machinery. He's fantastic. It's probably where I get a lot of my, not my metalworking skills, but my making genes from. My grandfather was a woodworker. My nana was a lace crocheter. She was a fantastic, beautiful lace work. And my mum was a knitter, so we're all makers. I'm a maker. These pieces I've picked up from the farm dump, and this piece here was off a stump cap, and so this led to me making these little bowls, so that I call them post topper bowls. And then I moved on to these landscapes that are from our local Lake Grace area. I live in Lake Grace, and the rust and the lakes and the metal that I've found on the ground is actually, it's of the ground of the area, and it works to make a beautiful landscape. I also have begun to make jewellery out of these small found pieces, and I've some of the things that I've been playing with are the quandongs that when we were children we'd go up the rock hill, which was about 2 k's away from the house. And Dad taught us to crack the sandalwoods and the quandongs and eat them. If you get stuck in the bush, you can eat this food. It was a plaything, but it's actually quite serious. It's part of how I grew up and part of our natural landscape. And there's a whole history that goes before us that people, you know, the Indigenous lived off this land like that with these things. I'm a bit of a bowerbird. Blue glass attracts me. I pick up lots of blue glass all the time. And these pieces are made from the remains of oil bottles, castor oil and different oils that we used once upon a time. Some of the pieces of china remind me of my nana, and the settings that they have and the formality of these pieces actually sort of makes me think about the rituals of the home and what people did back then. Not so much now. We don't have high teas or anything like that, but this china is beautiful. These pieces here have got washers and nuts in them. When I was young, I used to pick up the welding rod ends from when Dad was welding down the shed, and I'd take them home, I'd put them under my bed, much to my mum's despair. Eventually she did give me a cupboard to put all my collections in. There were rocks and bottles and bits and pieces, all sorts of iron, and the wood blocks that Pop gave me. You know, there were just, it was collections. The collections have come together to make this work. So I'm making a landscape here, a mini landscape. This is the landscape around Lake Grace. This is Lake Evelyn. It's one of my favourite views in Lake Grace. It's just 16 kilometres north of town, and it's a fabulous lake. It changes all times of the seasons. Sometimes when you're coming home from hockey, the moonlight's just right. You actually get a stairway to the moon there. It's beautiful. So all my techniques are based on textiles, basically. They're all stitch or
It's not like sewing a nice soft piece of cotton, is it?
No. So I do workshops. I teach people how to work with wire, and I'm due to do a number of workshops over the next 6 months. If you want to join me at a workshop, my contact details will be on the end of this video. Thank you.